Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Donald Trump stuns the market and opens a new front in the trade war. The U.S. president is now threatening a blanket tariff on all goods from Mexico, risking economic disaster on both sides of the border. Stocks around the world are lower. The Dow is off more than 1%. S&P 500 and the Nasdaq are also taking a beating as I speak as well. Mr. Trump spent the day criticizing Mexico on Twitter. He says that in just over a week's time, tariffs will hit and continue to rise until Mexico achieves what a lot of people think is basically impossible, stopping illegal immigration to the United States. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says tariffs are not how social problems are resolved. He is hopeful the president will reconsider.
I believe that President Trump will understand that this is not the way to solve things. I think that there will be a correction, if not right away, at some point, because these measures are neither in the interest of Mexicans or United States citizens.
Jeremy Diamond is at the White House and Alison Kosick is at the New York Stock Exchange for us. So, Jeremy, I want to start with you. I mean, it just seems as though trade tariffs are not really about trade anymore. They've now become a political weapon. Walk us through that.
That's right, and we've watched the different ways that this president has tried to use tariffs as a weapon. Usually, though, it has dealt with trade disputes. This time we're seeing him use it as a weapon to try and resolve this immigration situation at the southern border. And the president is making quite clear that he is going to impose these tariffs on June 10th, 5%, and then slowly scaling those up month after month unless Mexico takes certain actions to contradict that. But at the same time, we know that the president has been warned by several of his key advisors against taking this step. The Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, the U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, both of them, according to our sources, warning the president against taking this step, particularly because it imperils passage of the U.S. MCA, which is the revamped NAFTA free trade agreement that, of course, the president has made a top priority to get through Congress. The president and his advisors have been hoping to use that bill or that trade agreement as really a key central plank of his 2020 re-election campaign. And now with the president imposing these tariffs on all imports from Mexico, that is very much now in jeopardy.
So is this just a brazen attempt to change the subject, given Mueller's statement? What are your thoughts on that?
You know, that's always the consideration when you're talking about any move that the president is making at a time when he's in a bad news cycle. But at the same time, our sources have told us that the president was very much unnerved this week watching this increase in a spike, really, in migrants crossing illegally into the United States this week. There was one day this week where over 1,000 migrants crossed over. The president tweeted about that. And so we know that that has certainly been on his mind, not only this week, but really in recent weeks, we've seen him talk about how Mexico needs to do more to stem this flow of migrants crossing into the United States. And now we're seeing the president act on that. Again, this was a decision that pitted the president's advisors, Mnuchin and Lighthizer, coming out against it. But the president did have support from some key advisors, Stephen Miller, his hawkish immigration advisor, Mick Mulvaney, as well as Peter Navarro, the president's trade advisor.
All right, Jeremy Diamond, live for us there. Thank you so much. I want to bring in Alison Kosick, who's been at the New York Stock Exchange all day. So, Alison, obviously investors have been squarely focused on the U.S.-China trade war, but this move against Mexico took everyone totally by surprise.
Oh, absolutely. That tweet last night from President Trump blindsiding investors here. We saw that from the open and now almost to the close. We're an hour away from the closing bell, and it looks like the Dow is going to close below 25,000 for the first time in 4 months. The big worry here that this tariff, this threat to impose this 5% tariff on all goods imported from Mexico will raise business costs and then, of course, trickle down to the consumer, getting it hit squarely in the face, the auto industry. You see stocks like GM, Ford, Fiat, Chrysler down anywhere from 3 to 5%. And you look at their supply chains, talking about between Mexico and the U.S., they're so closely integrated that sometimes these manufactured products, Zane, cross the border 1, 2, 3 times. So a tariff would really become cost prohibitive for these two countries to do business in the auto industry. But you know what? Time is not on their side, because if this tariff does go into effect, it's 1 week from this Monday. So finding another supplier is nearly impossible. So it's a huge worry here to Wall Street how something like this will really shake out if this tariff does go into effect. Zane?
And Alison, you and I both know that famous adage, sell in May, go away. I mean, the whole month, aside from these tariffs against Mexico, the whole month of May has been somewhat problematic for U.S. investors.
Yeah, I mean, stocks have been going pretty strong up until May. I mean, you see this that the Dow has been on a 6-week losing streak, and the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, they're on a 4-week losing streak, and May is turning out to be the first down month for the year. We may finally be seeing, not just, of course, today with the threat of tariffs on Mexican products, but we may finally be seeing the Chinese tariff situation really impacting stocks, because, you know, we just came off an earnings season, or in the middle or the end of one, and we're seeing companies talk about earnings, talk about the tariffs and the impact of those Chinese tariffs. And so you're seeing Wall Street become worried now. Zane?
All right, Alison Kosik live for us there. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.